A warm welcome to everyone. This is our Genius Weekly Biofeedback class where you can come and ask questions, where you can volunteer for a scan, where we talk about important health topics, and we explain things that have to do with the genius and how to work with them. So thank you for attending. If you want more information about biofeedback and the genius, go to my website, awakentotalhealth.com, awakentotalhealth.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, look at the link down below and you can find out how to use the genius free for 14 days. So this class is always available to people who are interested in the genius, who are just, using the genius and want more tips and strategies. And I love being with you here every week in this space. So thank you. So we're starting with a case and we're going to have a focus today on digestion. So if you have a question about digestion in general or just anything that you want to know, go ahead and send it to me in the chat box. If you can't find the chat box and you're super confused, shoot me an email and I'll check the email online as we're doing the webinar today. So we're starting with a case of a woman who is in let's say late 70s to early 80s. And it's always good when you're talking about a case to give a date range and not exactly focusing on the date, because you always want to maintain anonymity, right? So this is one of our community of users, and this is a case of reflux. So we'll be talking about reflux. Really, actually a very important discussion to talk about reflux. And how to deal with it with biofeedback. So we'll talk about that in the general panels, and then we'll talk about it more specifically with some of the special testing panels that I've developed. Okay, so reflux is when we tend to think that the stomach acid is too high. So we always think maybe the stomach acid is too high, and so people get heartburn or disruption. So even in this picture in the genius, we can kind of take a little bit of a piece here. So when you eat food, it goes, this is obviously the central nervous system, but just in general, you eat food, it goes down a tube, right? You're just a big tube from one end to the other, and it goes from your from your mouth when you swallow it by something called the peristaltic waves. It goes down towards your stomach. So it's not just happening through gravity, it's actually sort of these rhythmic waves. Everything in the body is about rhythm. So it's something to think about, rhythm. Go and listen to sacred drumming. Go and walk, go outside and walk and get in touch with the circadian rhythms of the earth. Sleep close to when the sun goes down and wake up when the sun comes up. Think about rhythm and getting yourself more aligned with rhythms in your life. It can really help a lot. So these rhythms, these peristaltic waves, push the food down towards the stomach, and there's a valve there called the lower esophageal, has a lovely name called the lower esophageal sphincter, and it will, with this peristaltic waves and responses in the body, it'll open and it will allow the food to enter into the stomach, and then it'll close again. And it really shouldn't open except in response to certain hormonal changes. So certain hormonal changes and certain acidity changes. So changes in the pH could possibly open up the that sphincter. So it should stay nice and tight, okay, while you're digesting your food. If you eat really spicy food or you consume caffeine or foods that you're sensitive to, there's a chance that it will open up at an untoward moment and allow some of that, what is in the stomach, to percolate up back into the esophagus. And the lining of the esophagus is not prepared to deal with acidic contents in the same way that the stomach can. The stomach can produce mucus. It has a lining that's designed for a low pH. So a high pH is more alkaline, like around 6.2. Well, that's slightly acidic. So just think of 7. So, and then the low pH is acidic. It can get down to 1 or 2 in the stomach when your stomach acid is very, very high. But what we think happens rather than high acidity causing reflux is a chronic low acid problem. It's much more common for people to have too low stomach acid than for them to really have innately too high stomach acid. Because stomach acid is brought on, let me just check the aura here while we're sort of doing a couple of things at the same time, and we will see our dear Lovely's face here on the aura, but you can't see it that well. And we're still, I mean, it's, you know, we can say her first name, Hilda, and Hilda we keep her anonymous, we keep her birth date and so forth anonymous. Beautiful smile there. So we can see actually a little bit of cloudiness going on in here. This is sort of like your best call, you guys. This isn't like a straight up interpretation. Like, you have to also use your intuition. But there's some cloudiness here that I would associate with physical imbalance. I have a great picture of someone who is in intense physical pain, and just trying to think if I can find, oh, I think it's here. No, was that it? Let's see. Yeah, I think it was, no, this was a pet one that I did. Well, I'm not going to find it right now. That was actually a dog that I was working on that was intense physical pain. Okay, I'm not navigating very well. All right, so let's just get that memorialized there, and then we'll go back to the story about the stomach. So it's much more popular or much more prevalent for the stomach acid to be low. So what we think happens is that the stomach acid goes, that the acid is low. So you've got a whole turkey dinner in your stomach, and your stomach is unable to mount that acidity response. So things that knock out your stomach acid would be eating too much processed food, eating too much cooked food, not slowing down when you're eating when you're doing other things, being stressed while you're eating, poor nutrition, so not getting enough zinc helps to make hydrochloric acid. So all of these things contribute to creating good, healthy stomach acid, or what we call like a fire in the belly. In fact, meditative breathing and meditation and yoga, all the yoga stretches, are designed to help the stomach to have a better fire. It's been said that an experienced yogi, could digest a bowling ball by some of the meditation teachers, because the fire in your belly gets so stoked and so worked on through these energetic postures and through being in the practice of being in parasympathetic mode. So those things can be really, really helpful for that reason. So now you've had the turkey dinner, it's in your stomach acid is too low. Well, if your stomach acid is too low, the stomach will keep the contents in there longer. It's like, oh man, you should be digesting. If we could just wait a little bit longer. Whoa, don't release that to go into the small intestine. It's still trying to digest. And so you get this putrefaction, and you actually get organic acids being produced in the stomach as a result often. So now you're having an acidic sort of lovely fermentation experience going on, and you're getting often some of that percolating up into the esophageal, through the esophageal sphincter, which could open from, the foods that you're eating, or poor muscle tone, or for whatever reason, it then percolates up, that acid percolates up into the esophagus, and you get, reflux. Oh, I better take some antacids. And this is one of the things that has just always blown my mind, and I think we've been some of the greatest help as naturopaths, is that people will take Tums or Prilosec, these acid blockers, and some of these acid blockers are actually shown to cause elevations of serum gastrin over the long term, which will cause a predilection or predispose someone for getting gastric cancer. So long-term use of acid blockers, those over-the-counter acid blockers, is really not a good idea. Originally, going back 25, 30 years, those drugs were only available for prescription, by prescription, and they were only recommended to be taken for like a maximum of 8 to 10 weeks. And then you were supposed to correct your diet and take better care of yourself. And we have people who are just using them for years and years and years to control reflux. So, enzymes, probiotics, better food choices, not eating while you're in the car or working at your desk, all of these things contribute to um, healing reflux. It's actually one of the best things we do in naturopathic medicine. Some people use apple cider vinegar, some people use gentian, bitters. Anything that's bitter in your mouth creates sweetness in your system. Anything that's bitter in your mouth creates sweetness in your system. So that's why leafy greens, green vegetables, bitters are extremely important for good digestion. Yet, in the standard Western diet, we have very, very few bitter foods that people consume naturally on an ongoing basis. So now let's go ahead and look at our case here of esophageal issues, of acid reflux, and see if we can figure out anything important about this case. So we see the chakras, the solfeggio tones are coming up as red. And let's see if there's anything else. We see the meridians are sort of showing like a depletion or a deficiency state. And interesting that the spiritual protection is 5. So everything that you see in your system overview, you want to sort of have a moment where you look at this and you say, what is the meaning? What is the pattern? What is the communication? And sort of link that up with what might be going on with your client. Now, a little bit more here. Hilda says, I have huge reflux and stomach problems. When I start eating, I have to be careful or I get very bloated. Now, even water does not pass well. So she gets very, very uncomfortable. Now, we should be very cautious, is probably not exclusively reflux. If you eat and immediately get bloated, that is probably not reflux. That could be an issue with your liver, gallbladder. That could be an issue with your pancreas. It could be SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. All of these things are associated with bloating right after eating. Probably a series of good digestive enzymes, probiotics, maybe some yoga stretches. All of those things will help. And we also need to know about what your stress level is like. If you're, I guess, Hilda, you can send me a chat here and we can talk a little bit about it. You can send me a little message. Do you rate your stress level very low? If so, let me know. That gives me more information. So I think the spiritual protection is a really good panel. It confuses a lot of people. That's why I really, really recommend you guys go to my mastery guide. They say like leaders are readers. I know that I send out the mastery guide and people have it by their desk, but I know that a lot of people don't consult it on a regular basis when they're going through cases. And I really recommend, if you can, it's really helpful because the spiritual protection is not totally clear when you're looking at it just on the screen. And what I did when I wrote the Mastery Guide, which you can go to awakentotalhealth.com, pick up a copy of the Mastery Guide. We can send you the hard copy. We can send you the e-copy. We can send you both. The reason I did it is because it is inherently confusing. So let's go through these. I'm going to read you the interpretations from the Mastery Guide, okay? So surround and protect for the highest good. FTHG means for the highest good. This indicates the need to build up your energetic reserves and keep your energetic shields up. Surround and protect. Imagine yourself being protected by red roses with long stems that will pick up negativity sent to you by others. Run this frequency to increase protection all around you. Okay, so read those in the Mastery Guide. It'll help you immensely to explain to other people so they don't get freaked out by this. Releasing attachments. This frequency means you may be holding on to old belief systems or engaging in codependent relationship with others that do not serve you. It could also mean unnecessary attachments to material items. Everything is temporary, and spiritual teachers tell us to have some sense of detachment from material things. This frequency will help you to ease fears you may have from releasing those attachments to people and things. So, this is part of the co-creative process of biofeedback is you can read this explanation to someone and it may start bells going off for them. Oh, I know something related to that. We should think when we do a biofeedback session with intention, you should understand that there's no accident that things percolate up the way that they do. When something comes up like this, there's a reason that you're noticing it, and especially if something in particular you notice, and you're communicating it to the client, and there's a co-creative process going on. They're clearing all types of things even as they're hearing the explanations. Auric protection. This is very similar to the other frequencies in this category. This means that some of your defenses may be down and you are more likely to be influenced by the moods or negativity at that time. I saw a great thing on Instagram that was dedicated to people who are empaths, like all of you on here are, and it said, I have 99 problems and 89 of them are belong to other people. And I just thought that was hilarious because you guys take on a lot and you're working with a lot of other people. And so you need to protect your aura. So to protect your aura, run this frequency and imagine that you are protected by the red roses with the long stems all along the perimeter of your aura, going out about 3 feet from your body. Dark forces. So this is one that has been really misunderstood and people get completely freaked out. We can never create a situation which is not of the source from within ourselves. As above, so below, as inside, so outside in your reflection and your projection. Dark forces. While there may be dark forces externally, most people need to be concerned about the dark forces they face within themselves. If you see this frequency, it is best to begin to intentionally return to spiritual practices, including meditation and positive affirmations. Consciously consider embracing the light. Balancing this frequency will help. And then another one that freaks people out is entities. So again, everything has to come from something within you. You have to give permission. You are involved in the creation of it, just as you are able to dissolve that particular experience. So this frequency of entities indicates that some entities may be affecting your energy field. It is important not to give your power away or feel like a victim. Most entities are really projections of our own fears and negative thoughts that have been going on for some time. The best remedy is to begin to meditate and to do some positive affirmations, written or spoken, each and every day. When running this frequency, some may find it helpful to invoke the protection and assistance of Archangel Michael. In fact, if you really think you have entities, why are there only 4 now? Did I not include these? There, let's get those in there. Weird. What is actually in here? So there's 4. I did the dark forces. Why is the entities is not going in? Really weird, right? That would be really weird. Okay, so yes, if you really do have entities within you, you can cast them out. So, and you can particularly release them. It's usually something that you've drawn into yourself for some reason. So you can do that through calling on Archangel Michael. So Archangel Michael, I now wish to, sever these attachments, release any entities. I no longer need to have this codependent or parasitic relationship. I declare that I release them 100% completely. I offer them to you to take up into the light, and so it is. Something to that effect. I mean, you have the ability to do that any day of the week, and Archangel Michael specifically in his wheelhouse, That's one of his assignments that he helps you with. Let's do one more. Let's do cutting the cord. We energetically cord with people we are connected to in life. This can be parents, children, spouses, etc. When a relationship is codependent or one person is pulling or draining energy from the other, this is an example of an unhealthy cord. So there can be healthy cords too. You naturally cord to people that you love. But when it's cutting the cord, when they're actually, it's not like even, like they're, sort of pulling your life force, then you want to cut that cord. And it's good to do every now and then anyway, just to sort of clean your energy field. With this frequency, it helps to strengthen you and correct the imbalance in that relationship. So these could very well, just from reading them, they could be a source of why the gut is inflamed, right? I love biofeedback because it embodies the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, and physical. I think I said physical. So all of those things are connected and wrapped up in any particular thing. So a lot of times with the gut, we're storing or stuffing a lot of our energy there. So if the energy is disrupted in our life for some reason, and I think there are a lot of good pieces in here that could be the source even more than the physical. Okay. Okay. So excellent, you guys. Oops, don't want to do that. So, all right. So Helda says her stress level is very, very low. So I just wonder if anything that we've just discussed now maybe has triggered some new awarenesses. So I like to do today's stress just as an overall check. And it says the kidneys are stressed. So this happens as we age, and you have to be really careful now with the amount of protein that you're consuming. So I definitely recommend a lower protein, more plant-based food plan. And go down to the bottom here, down in the lower section to see the blue ones. And I kind of suspect people who are over 75, I'm going to see a lot more blue than red. There's going to be a lot more chronicity, a lot more depletion, a lot more stagnation often as we age. It doesn't happen in every person, but I suspect that I didn't even really go for the immune here because I suspect I'm going to have a lot to work with down here. So there's some adrenal stuff, some liver stuff, which is what I said. I think that the easiest and fastest thing you can start to implement is a castor oil pack over the abdomen 20 to 45 minutes before bedtime. So castor oil pack, if you need those instructions, I can send them to you. That's going to help a lot with restoring parasympathetic flow, and it also just helps to tonify the whole liver area. Degeneration, fungus, virus, these are all defined clearly in the Mastery Guide. Nutritional means, yeah, we're not absorbing food as well as we could. All right, so let's just look and see if there's anything else that sort of jumps out here. Now there's digestion, not a surprise. So let's see what comes up here. Large intestine, okay, that's interesting. And the liver at 5. We don't really need to include it again, but we can. And then there's the esophagus, which is really, really interesting because there's that reflux, right? So the esophagus is saying there's an imbalance. So sort of there may be reflux and liver stuff and enzyme deficiency. These aren't mutually exclusive. It says there's some chemical sensitivities. Let's see. Some exposure to gasoline, herbicides, paint fumes, and organophosphates. I don't know if these are recent, but that might be why the liver is inflamed or irritated or out of balance in some way. Pesticides, yeah, there seems to be a pesticide. There are 3 indicators here: herbicides, organophosphates, and pesticides. I guess, Hilda, do they do any spraying in the Greek city or Greek town, or for heavens, if you're on an island, I hope they're not doing it. But so that would be good to know. We've got some neurotransmitters. So this could, let's see what comes up here. Okay, norepinephrine. So are you meditating? Are you taking a few minutes in the morning to meditate? Oxytocin is a feel-good hormone, and GABA is when the mind is very, very busy, and sometimes it's hard to calm down the mind. Now let's switch our view to the libraries. So we're going to go to the digestive libraries, including the assessment and the solutions. I think that will be extremely helpful. So this is going to switch in just a moment. Oh, interesting. Secure. I can talk about that, although it's not the most pleasant thing to take. It's interesting that it comes up at the top. Okay, I just created that panel for a singular client that had such bad stomach stuff. Nothing we could do could help this client. And so let's talk about this. I think if you have a lot of my panels, it is valuable to look down the list of what does come up for them, because there often will be something in this list that is really, really important. I think one of my Sophie, if you're listening or listening on the recording, told me the other day that she had come up with the equine panels that had come up at the top, and then she tested them. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't for a horse, it was for a person. Why would that come up? And it came up with really like something like cracked heels. And she's like, oh my God, I do have cracked heels. So, I mean, biofeedback doesn't lie. Like, there's always a reason. And if you really pay attention, instead of just discarding something out of hand, oh, this is wrong, you know, and just look at it, you actually will get a great communication of information. So Secure is this white fish, really, really a good for people with chronic gut issues. The thing is, like, you do not want to smell this stuff when you take it. It's actually white fish, and it's made into, I think it's like fermented white fish um, made into a supplement. So we learned about it in naturopathic school, and it really can help people who have very, very bad. It helps to break down inflammation in the gut. It's even been used for people who are have chemotherapy, who can't really absorb anything. And then they use the C-Cure in order to calm down the inflammation in their gut post-chemotherapy in order to make sure that they can actually absorb some food. So you can just Google C-Cure and read more about it. So the intensive came up as the biggest one, and this one contains the C-Cure, which is the fermented whitefish. You don't really taste it. Just don't smell the capsule as you take it, and you'll be fine. Oh, and the C-Cure in general actually has a high resonance too. Actually, all of them are pretty high resonance. The intensive is colostrum and boswellia. I mean, I don't really talk a lot about colostrum, but you know, this might have real value for you, Hilda. So the intensive and the C-Cure in here. So what this tells us is sort of a reflexive, you know, like, what is the resonance with the solution tell us about the problem? It tells us there's probably a really inflamed gut going on here. You know, I mean, it's pretty good. I don't really talk about C-Cure at all, so it's pretty cool that it came up at the top there. But yeah, biofeedback really doesn't lie. When you begin to understand it, and you know, in a more detailed way, it really does make a lot of sense. But for now, let's just look at the digestive panels. So let's look at that digestive assessment and see what we've got here. Let's see what's down at the bottom as well. So there we go. There's that reflux at 136. Wonderful. I mean, love that we get to see it. You know, this is really fantastic. And this has always been my experience, that my clients and patients will report to me what the issue is, and then we'll just see it right in the reds and blues on biofeedback. Dysbiosis. So this tells us a good acidophilus or probably bifidobacteria is going to be better. So if you're making a list, you might want to write down, Hilda, bifidobacteria, the castor oil pack, and looking into the C-Cure. I understand in Greece you might not be able to get that supplement, so we just do what we can. Maybe you can get something that's similar. Maybe you can call the company and get it shipped internationally. So fungus, this is sometimes very common when we have a chronic issue or immune system is suppressed. Leaky gut, so I think, you know, that's part of the whole thing. Lipase, this is really common. One of the things that can cause a lipase imbalance is a lifetime consumption of coffee can impede the lipase production. Probably has something to do with what happens to the liver. But it looks like our fat digesting enzymes are not what they could be, so you could take a lipase supplement. Okay, so we did. We could look at digestive organs. We kind of already looked at that. Let's just see if there's anything different in this panel. This one is focused on cancer prevention. So there we go. Boom. Low stomach acid being going back to the very beginning of the lecture, which was my presumption right from the beginning that we're really dealing. So gentian bitters, getting the stomach, really, really keyed up and getting it tonified. Look online for some yoga postures for a healthy tummy. And even if they're just do the most gentle postures. Looks like you may be consuming some food sensitivities and your stomach, your pH could be more alkalized, and there's some sluggish liver stuff contributing, which that was my thought. The liver issue with the liver being irritated, inflamed, there might be gallstones. Post-menopausally, as the estrogen goes down, the gallbladder does not function in the way that it used to. It doesn't get the estrogenic release causes the gallbladder to contract and release the bile. When the estrogen goes low, you're not getting that. The gallbladder just is not as good as it used to be. So you can look into something called lipotrophic factors. Anything that can make the gallbladder function better. That's what you're looking for. So I think the gallbladder, the lipase, all of those things are sort of tied up in each other. It says that there is some gallstones. That's what intrahepatic stones are, stones that live between the two lobes of the liver. And they may be doing nothing. They may be asymptomatic, but it's part of the whole reason why you may be getting bloated after consuming food. So I think this may be more of a liver issue. We do definitely see a reflux aspect of it. But for you doing a digestive tune-up like we just talked about and following that for a good solid 30 days, using my panels to enhance what you're doing, I think will go a really long way for you. So really interesting stuff coming out of here. So let's look at some digestive solutions, see what comes up here. Wormwood, ginger, black walnut, beet powder. What's down at the bottom here? Pine needle oil, taurine, acidophilus, sodium bicarbonate, lecithin. Okay, I expected more to see the bifidus come up, so maybe in this case the acidophilus is actually better. Wormwood is not just for parasites, you guys, although it's a good vermifuge, and maybe there are some parasites that we don't know about, but the bitters in wormwood is an extremely good, like an aperitif, right? It's a bitter that's in wormwood. If you open the capsules, you ever taste it, you can taste the bitter. Ginger would be good for just warming up the entire system, better circulation, reduce inflammation. Black walnut, also another bitter. Very, very good for parasites, but very, very good for tuning up the digestive system. I'm going to skip the beet powder, but beets would not be a bad idea for methylation. Pine needle oil, I'm kind of seeing a lot of remedies that do point to parasites, so I don't like to use the reflexive, oh, it's parasites, which is, you kind of see all over the place, but there are some herbs here that are indicative. And again, if you do have, let's not say it's parasites, but just a chronic gut infection overall, you definitely will see that you'll see more things lighting up for these parasitic things. And any kind of a gut infection could lead to bloating right after eating. And we do see these on our stool analysis in natural medicine. So it's not totally uncommon. Taurine could be very, very good for the nervous system and the adrenals. Acidophilus, and definitely I think even if you're not stressed, I'm wondering if you're getting really quality downtime, if you're getting meditation time, if you're getting walking on the beach time. But maybe you are. So sodium bicarbonate to balance the pH. Some lecithin is good for that liver gallbladder to make the bile flow better. Let's check in and see some of the feedback that we're getting from our class. And does the artery that runs from the heart to the stomach affect acid reflux? From the heart to the stomach. Do you mean like the abdominal aorta? Kelly? And she says, does it affect acid reflux? I'm sure it does in some way. I mean, I'm sure you could work on the vessel harmonizing program and work on the abdominal aorta. That's why we do that. You can incorporate, let's look at the vessel harmonizing and let's look at the nerve assessment and see what comes up. Dave M says, I just wanted to confirm ranges of concern over 600 and under 200. Yes. Also, can you speak further on the red and blue categories? Is blue signifying lack thereof and red signifying a higher unhealthy level of the respective category? So I do take this up in my mastery guide. Even if you have your Genius and you got it through the Inside Health website, you could either purchase my mastery guide there or you could purchase it separately on my website. I only keep blabbing about it because it can be such a good resource, but let me answer that question here. That red and blue are very similar. Now, the reason that the reds and the blues are at the cutoff point that they are, is that when most people use this, and then they see there are so many reds and so many blues, when we go all the way to 600, they're just completely overwhelmed. So a sort of a subjective decision was made to do a cutoff point a bit higher than actually relates to symptoms that I see in my patients. That is to say, anything above 600 or anything below 200, I definitely see a match with what I find in my naturopathic practice. Like they do legitimately have that issue going on. So I find that 600 and 200 is more realistic to put into the main whole tray for progressive insights, or even into the quick zap. Now, red and blue being highs and lows, which really the only meaning in biofeedback is that it shows reactivity. It means it's like some static in your vibrational frequency. And when you clear the static, you remove the reactivity by harmonizing those, you actually experience clarity. It's like, oh, after the session, I felt better. I slept better. I felt more myself. That's what's happening. And it could be purely reds and blues. Like if we didn't look at the meaning of any of these, we would still get benefit. But by looking at the meaning, we get more benefit because there is a collective or synergistic. There's something happening in both the cognitive understanding of what's going on inside of you and the energetic balancing. So there's a huge synergy and like a sort of an additive effect of these two things working together. So back to the reds. Reds, if we want to get really nuanced and we want to be all fancy pants about it, and sometimes this gets to be very significant. When you're looking at a problem, let's go back and look at some problems, like in the digestive assessment, and just curious what would be happening here. These are some extra panels I created post creating the digestive system panels. Gallbladder cleanse at 777. Gallbladder pain relief. Interesting. Gallbladder reduce pain. We haven't really heard that she has pain. Send love to the gallbladder. Create healthy bile. So I think we found sort of our, I love this one, life is sweet and so am I. That was actually that's a Louise Hay piece for the gallbladder that she found an affirmation for gallbladder stuff, because it's often about being angry, bilious. They talk about that in the naturopathic old traditional text. So back to the reds and the blues. So the reds, when you have a red, this isn't really a good panel for this. Let's talk about it in, are we having fun yet? This is the most fun healers were previously allowed to have on a Monday morning or a Monday afternoon, depending on where, or a Monday evening where Hilda is. Okay, so this is much better. So Dave, back to you. Kidneys, red. This means it's more inflamed, more superficial, not as important as your blues. So when someone has an adrenal issue and they are, say, in their 30s, and they're just like, hey, my career is really busy. I'm going to work until midnight and I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm still going to go work out before work. Great. You're going to start to get some adrenal stress. And because you're a young person, your body will be able to compensate. That would be the equivalent of seeing the adrenals in red, if adrenals were up here. But now you're 41, women are going into perimenopause, or you've just been doing it for enough years. You're like, now I'm really exhausted. There's no way I can get up and work out in the morning. I just can't do it. This is when you would see the adrenal frequency fall into the blue. So the blue is more associated with depletion, stagnation, chronicity. It's been a longer standing issue. Now, if you want to get all fancy pants and you're like, "Ooh, I want to get really good at this," you start to understand that your blues are more significant than your reds because they're really telling you about the compression of the energy. And we do see an adrenal of 18, which is like the perfect example, because as we age, it almost becomes, and this is where I do think that medicine can be your food. Let your food be your medicine. Let your medicine be your food. Like plant-based medicine can be your food, where it would be a good idea to take adaptogens on a regular basis, like food. So having ashwagandha, Siberian ginseng, holy basil, all of these good, even Avena sativa, which is oats, can be good for tonifying the adrenals because it's very, very calming. I love it. Colette says, yes, this is fun. I love it. Such a great enthusiasm. I love it. So yeah, so Dave, now I hope that answers your question. So let's go back to the libraries here, and we're going to get into, let's actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and get our flower essences done. So we always want to incorporate flower essences. They are of the utmost importance for any chronic issue that you're working with, because you want to take the energies of those flower essences you want to combine them with the physical issue that you're working on, because it potentiates and becomes a nice mover and shaker of the energy. So it's going to take that physical issue that they're working on, especially when you put all of these in the main hold tray. The one that is related to the physical issue, or the few that are related to the physical issue, are the ones that are going to percolate up to the top. And I know what I wanted to add now for back for Dave. So let me just get these in here. And I want to go back to the panel that we were working in the libraries here, because I wanted to talk about the solutions. So let's go back to our digestive panels here. And we talked about digestive solutions. So now, Dave, again, one more time back to you. Now when we're in the solutions and we're looking at this, we're going to see that our solutions that are red and blue are very significant. It's like they're attracted or drawn to that person's energy field. And using the same corollary kind of flipped around, we can surmise, and you're probably thinking this right now, I wonder if the lower or blue numbers could be even more significant or more effective for that person. And I would say to you, thumbs up, spot on, you got it. So your lower numbers are going to actually tell you more about the really good, juicy remedies for that person, because it's that compressed energy that in the reverse kind of says, oh, these are the ones that are most attracted. So the pine needle oil, look into the pine needle oil. I'm sure everybody has gone through their phase of the turpentine experience and the pine needle. Read up on it. It's very, very, you want to take it very, very carefully in drop dosages, but boy, it can really cause a profound cleansing, anti-parasitic gut healing experience. It's a rough one, so be careful with it, and especially with the kidney number coming up for hill to the weight, as I'd go very, very slow with the pine needle oil. But you can see those videos on YouTube, if they're to be believed, where the parasites come out through the skin. That's a fun one, good way to spend one's afternoon, right? For fun, let's peek at the digestive practices, see what comes up. Colon hydrotherapy and coffee enemas came up here. So that's interesting. I think that's kind of good for right now. There might be some food allergens. Let's actually, because we're getting, it's getting late, let's go to Progressive Insights, and let's answer some more of your questions. So as I've been doing more cases this past week, I again want to emphasize the value of the 3-minute continuous balancing protocol. If you do this in layers, where you balance for 3 minutes, you go back, you check the aura, or you don't even check the aura, you just maybe add one more thing, or you don't even do that. You just peel the onion every 3 minutes. So let's see if we can look at it with the time constraints that we have. Now, first of all, the awareness. The top remedy that came up for her was lipase. So this tells us that not only running it energetically will have good benefit, but this may be a very significant remedy for her. Now, most nutritionists are working in the cognitive realm. Like you might have looked at reflux and you might have just given one thing from your textbook nutrition knowledge base, but biofeedback makes that process much more dynamic and personal for the person. So here we have something that's amazing that we can give to her that's so personal and individual. And this might be the whole thing that she needs to change the whole case. Maybe she only needs one remedy because that remedy will do 80% of the job that she needs to feel better. Alkalizing the system, consuming food sensitivities, intrahepatic stones, colon therapy, some degeneration. Usually degeneration just means you're working on some physical issue. Okay, so you're working on something she's working on. There's more like a chronic thing going on there. And then you can read or highlight or give the person the essence that they're working on because it's part of the emotional wounds that they're working on. And I try to phrase it in the positive. So Willow is becoming free from like feeling sorry for oneself and rising above resentment. For those who have suffered adversity or misfortune and find these difficult to accept, without complaint or resentment as they judge life by the success which it brings. They feel they have not deserved so great a trial that it was unjust. And they can become sometimes feeling a little like bitter or irritated. And that could be the biliousness. They often take less interest and are less active in those things of life which they had previously enjoyed. Probably some of the foods, right? Because you probably can't go near them. So anyway, that kind of tells us a little bit. And, I always say to the person, this doesn't define you. This is just an energy that you're working through. And if it doesn't apply to you, just toss it out. Just toss it out. So Holly says, rising above any type of envy or jealousy and releasing feelings of resentment. So kind of a similar theme. For those who are sometimes attacked by thoughts such as jealousy or envy, and we all have those thoughts, you guys, for different forms of vexation. Within themselves, they may suffer much, often when there is no real cause for their unhappiness. And this is how the physical can feed the emotional. If your gallbladder is rather gunked up, you can feel that biliousness. So your physical condition can make you more likely to be angry for no reason. So if you go and you do a cleanse, you get a colonic, getting rid of your old stuff, right? Your old crap, as they say, it could be highly beneficial. And then it could change your physical emotional feeling, your emotional outlook on life. All of a sudden you're feeling, ooh, wow, I just don't feel irritated by that person anymore. Well, the person hasn't changed, just you've changed. So aspen is triumphing over the fear of unknown things. The aspen tree is smaller than most. Its growth pattern has been known to cause the leaves to quiver at the slightest breeze. So this is becoming more well-grounded in yourself. Vague, unknown fears for which there can be no explanation, no reason. It is a terror something awful is going to happen, even though it is unclear what exactly. These vague, inexplicable fears may haunt by night or day. Sufferers may often be afraid to tell their trouble to others. So, Hilda, if that applies to you, then I give you kudos for reaching out. Okay, and a lot of healers, very, very hard for healers to reach out. You guys know that. So kudos to anybody who reaches out for help. Okay, what do you think of Eat Right for Your Type? I don't even have time to address how silly this book is. So Eat Right for Your Blood Type does have, people do benefit from it because most of the diets, if you break it down, they're very, very similar, and they end up, not eating some of the most unhealthy foods. But we'll leave that for another time. But I'm just not a fan. I don't think there's any true science behind it. I think it's become sort of a folklore or a fad that was popular at the time because when people did a certain food plan on it, no matter what the blood type is, they got better because they were eating healthier foods. Okay, has acid reflux? I don't know what it says. We did get an indicator that the acid reflux was there, but I think the bloating is caused. I think it's a sort of a multi-layered thing. Okay, do medications disrupt frequencies? Asks Sharon. Well, medications carry their own signature, which is not a signature that is really embraced by the body. We could think about it as like an EMF signature, signatures that are in the energies of medications. Now, medications that are used on a very temporary basis are not the worst in the world. So if somebody is very, very sick with a cold or a flu and they take one day or 24, 48 hours of cold medication over the counter, something that relieves their pain and helps them to sleep, that can knock down that temporary measure can help them to feel good enough to connect with their own vital force. So if somebody has something that causes them a great deal of inflammation, then some of these natural anti-inflammatories for a moment to be used could be beneficial. But I don't think that medications disrupt the frequencies that are used in the Genius. I think it helps people to align better with what they're trying to do and get the most positive experience and benefit from their medications. This is why I was talking about, and people misconstrued it, and I can understand why. When you put a medication into the Genius, it doesn't mean that they take the Genius energetics as a substitute for the medication. Please don't do that. But when you run the medication for them, it means that you're helping to release the toxic effects of it and that they will more benefit from the medication in a positive way. Okay. Irritation is there. Yes, so Hilda, yes, I know that there's irritation there. We can see that irritation by what has transpired here. We really do see the inflammation for sure. And all the things we talked about, the gentian bitters, the wormwood, the black walnut, the good probiotic, the castor oil pack, eating mostly a plant-based diet with very low oil and low meat, getting some enzymes. All of these things we've talked about will help to reduce that irritation and inflammation. Oh, and she might have been talking about the emotional irritation. So that's good. I mean, that's just not good, but good to know that it matches. Carol had a question I probably am not going to be able to address, which is what would you look for in a child who has bad reflux, was an IVF baby? So you're such a great practitioner, Carol, that you've probably already done these things, but I always start with the basics. Look for horses versus zebras, right? Look for the most common things. And, you could treat it very similarly to what we've done today, do the digestive assessment. And reflux is always going to get better when we support the digestive system. I don't know, if there's something structurally that could be contributing. Certainly, I'm assuming that you've already said no dairy. This is looking much better, Hilda, looking very, very good. So now we go back here and we want to see what percolates to the top. So getting on an anti-inflammatory diet is important, and putting a kid on a more plant-based diet, a more plant-based anti-inflammatory diet for a while. And I would look for in the pediatric natural resources, like can you use gentian bitters? Is there a glycerin version? What we usually do herbs for kids is we give glycerites. So if you look at a pediatric holistic website that does herbal medicines, there's probably something there for kids. And of course, the usual suspects. If a kid has bad reflux, like what's going on in the house? If it was an IVF baby, what are the important circumstances around the birthing process? Was the mother very, very stressed, at the time of the pregnancy? I would sort of consider all of those things because that's pretty young to have reflux. And for heaven's sake, I'm glad that that child is ending up in your office, because it's very common now to give these, and hold on to your hats, you guys, Tums and acid blockers to kids. If they end up in the pediatricians, or who knows, like probably some type of SSRI, some type of antidepressant. So these are, wow, you guys had such good things to say today. I really, really appreciate it. All of the contribution, all of the great energy today. Um, and just, you guys can hop into this class anytime, like whether it's at the hour or halfway through the hour. But Hilda, I hope that you got some benefit out of this, and I hope we hear back from you about how you're doing as you incorporate these things. And if you're not clear about them, get in touch with me. So remember, for all things going on, with the teachings that I'm doing in the classes, go to awakentotalhealth.com. You guys, I want to remind you that iOS, for those of you who use Apple-based devices, one thing you have to understand about an app is you need to maintain the operating system on your device. If it's Android, you need to stay with the latest version of Android. If it's an iOS version, an Apple-based device, an iPad or an iPhone, a mini iPad, that type of thing, really, really important that you update the iOS, which we have just gone from like 11.4 to 12. So if you're seeing that software update notification in your settings, do that sometime today. If you don't do it for long enough, you will end up with more of the time, things not working out. So definitely, definitely do that. All right, so sorry, I was reading comments at the same time. And so Karen says, thanks so much, Karen from Canada is here. And I think that you had a wonderful experience. So many things for us to catch up on over the weekend. But she says, yoni steams and essential oil suppositories. I don't know if that's for the child. I don't know if the child would be very responsive to yoni steams, but it could be good for Hilda as well. And we do see the pine needle oil up here. So yeah, so make sure that you update to 12. If you start getting crashes, you guys, it's often because you have not updated your operating system. And I'm going to just go a couple minutes over. In the second layer here, we see the auric protection and so go back and read those spiritual protection ones, because they're very, very significant for you. And so those would be really, really important. And then the walnut, let's just do a quick peek here. You guys, you might get logged out of your device. If you ever get logged out of your device, remember to hit the refresh button at the upper right. It's the most common reason people think they've lost their libraries or their clients. At the upper right of your screen when you first log in, after you've logged out, there's a refresh button. You have to click on that one, then click on 4 subsequent refreshers. Okay, so walnut, I need to do a little bit more research into walnut, but it's basically protection from change and unwanted influences. I guess I'd be kind of curious after the class today, Hilda, like, who's your really good friends, or are there people you're living near that you don't like that much, or I don't know what's going on there. So just another peek at the aura. And I wanted to do one more unwinding there for her, and I just wanted to see what percolated at the last time. So this is the 3-minute continuous balancing. I just like to see what comes up as I go through the 3 minutes, and now this is looking really nice. Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, some nice emerald green. And I would take from this, she's still actively working on all of that digestive stuff, but it's looking really, really much, much better. And I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to go here, and I wanted to just do one more. Sometimes I call it like a drill down. Just want to see what comes up. So releasing attachments, coffee enema, large intestine, low stomach acid, herbicides. Yeah, I mean, not really. I wanted like there to be this aha moment. So sometimes there is. So let's just stop and look at from beginning to end. If we've got some interesting, there we go. So this was the first one. This was the second one, and that's the final one. So a great case. So if you have a case you want me to look at next week, or you have somebody who's interested in the Genius, you can invite them to have a volunteer scan. All of those things are fair game. Or you come write to me this week, and you'll be right at the top of the charts, right at the top of the list for next week. And if you have any questions that I can answer for you about the Genius, go to my website, awakentotalhealth.com, and then hit the contact us at the bottom right, and I will get right back to you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful, abundant, and healthy week. Keep on harmonizing, everyone. Take care and be well. Bye-bye for now.